Hi everyone, back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if it's your first time. This is, quite obviously, my unboxing and review of MP-52 Thundercracker version 2. Masterpiece, continuation of the Masterpiece Seeker line. I was not expecting this figure to arrive until October, maybe even late October, but here we go. We're a few weeks early, which can only be a good thing. And I haven't really done anything with this box yet. I had it, I think it turned up today. I was in the middle of work, couldn't really do anything, then had other stuff to do, as often happens. So this is going to be a live reaction. Hopefully nothing's broken inside, the box looks intact. Hopefully I've got all the pieces I should have, and I won't have to shut the camera off and go and sob in a corner or anything like that. Anyway, before we crack on and I open the box, let's just have a quick look at the box itself, because obviously you can see the front here. It's not actually a very good representation of the colour of the figure from what I've been seeing online. It's photographs differently than it looks in person from what what I've seen of comparison pics for those lucky enough to get the figure even earlier than me. But what I do like about this one is that the rear of the box has, obviously the side you can see there, it's got the alt mode on it. The rear of the box has some really nice stills from the toon on there, and they've tried to replicate the poses, which I think is pretty neat. They don't, they go a little bit extra mile on their packaging, don't they, Takara? So I'm quite happy with those, showing off the different things he can do. But yeah, obviously not going to go on about the box for too long. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it off camera, like I said, for the aforementioned reasons that if anything is missing or broken, I don't want to have a breakdown in public. But anyway, I'll be right back with a look at the figure himself and all of the accessories. So stick with me. And here's Thundercracker unboxed, and I'm pleased to say that the initial inspection didn't reveal any major defects, at least as best as I could tell in the alt mode anyway. But what a glorious colour scheme. I think this is probably showing up on camera better than it would have on the box, or at least I hope it does. The blue, I love it. It's really nice. You say a lot of, the Takara has its detractors, I know, but their painted figures really do look the part. And yeah, this is glorious. Thundercracker, oddly, anecdote time again. Thundercracker was always my favourite G1 jet because he was hard to find, and I just loved the metallic blue finish on him. And I had the other two, Starscream and Skywalker, much earlier than I had Thundercracker, and I eventually tracked him down in some random supermarket. Well, I wasn't even looking for him, which was great. Completed my trio, but this is obviously more of a toon colour, and it's quite a flat colour obviously, but it's such a gorgeous blue. It's just really lovely. Again, I don't know if the camera's doing it justice, but in person it just looks fantastic. And I prefer this deco to the Starscream deco actually. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually inadvertently wearing a very similar colour jumper today, which is nice. Yeah, obviously quite flat and toon. You'll notice there are no stripes on the tail fins here, as there often weren't in the toon on the animation model. Has the plain blue nose cone. Other than that, everything is similar to MP-52. Obviously it's the same mould, just a different colour. So I won't go on at great length about it, because I know my videos do have a tendency to drag on. And you can always check out the MP-52 video if you want a more thorough look at the alt mode. Obviously I will give you a quick 360 on him. He looks really nice. As I say, my copy, I have one tiny blemish on the red stripe on the wing. I'm not sure how well that will show up on camera, if at all. I'll bring it in close. Where is it? I'm struggling to see it myself. It's kind of there by the thumb, but you probably won't be able to see it because it doesn't show up that well. The lights are kind of drowning out a bit. It's just where the paint's a bit thinner in that one area, so it is red, but it's kind of a little bit thin there. You don't really notice it unless you're looking for it. although I guess once you know it's there, that you're always going to kind of be drawn to it. Other than that though, yeah, he doesn't look too bad. I've noticed like one or two other tiny paint defects, you know, spots here and there, like a little black spot on the grey here, but that's well within the normal tolerance for any masterpiece scale figure. You know, I've had others, you know, my MP-19 Plus Prowl Anime Edition had some fairly noticeable defects, paint burrs and spots on it, and while they initially annoyed me, I got over them pretty quickly, and now I don't even think about them. So keeping it in context and trying to keep a sense of perspective, so far out of the box this looks, you know, pretty good. I've also inspected it off camera and it doesn't have any cracks on the hinges, which is also great because my Starscream had a hairline crack on this hinge. So yeah, all things considered, it's currently looking like it's in better condition than Starscream was when he was out of the box, albeit I haven't yet transformed him to robot mode. As you can see, I haven't even removed the cellophane from this guy yet. So anyway, what I'm going to do is, I know some people will probably be interested to see a comparison with the MakeToys version, so I have brought that with me, and I've transformed it into its jet mode. So just let me bring that in as well, and you can see the differences. And yeah, I don't hate the MakeToys version at all. I thought it was a pretty good looking version of the figure, as I said about their Starscream, and especially the alt mode. The alt mode I think actually looks better than the robot mode, certainly now by comparison. But there are obviously a number of things I don't like about this. There are some odd colour choices, which actually don't look that odd now you compare them to Thundercracker here, because obviously their Skywarp, or Skycrow as they called him, had silver deco here, whereas Old Lightning here has got this sort of more grey, it's almost got a blue tint to it actually, but it's not a million miles away from the grey used by the official Takara. So yeah, maybe they weren't that crazy after all with that colour. The blue, as you can see, it's more of a gloss, but it's again slightly darker, but not a million miles away. And yeah, the jet mode, obviously the major differences are they do have these black panels on the back there, which you can see, but they're in a slightly different position than they are on the official model, where they have the two sets. What else is different? I mean, the major difference, obviously the canopy here is opaque, and I never really liked the kind of colour they use for this. It's goldy, but it's not as nice as the one they use for Starscream. And they use three different colours for all three of their Seekers, and I always felt this was like probably the worst of the three. Sort of like a little bit greeny, pukey, goldy. Obviously this is another issue. I really hated the fact they cheaped out on the moulding and put this bit on a different sprue to the rest of it. So obviously it's grey as opposed to the blue, and it has the black nose cone, which, depending on what animation model you look at, the earliest version of the animation model for Thundercracker did have a black nose cone, much like Starscream had a blue nose cone, but then that was abandoned in favour of the uniform colour on both Starscream and Thundercracker. So obviously Starscream with his grey and Thundercracker with his blue, and Skywarp always had the black nose cone for some reason. I don't think there's really anything else to go into in terms of, I mean, obviously, sorry, the details on the tail fins, although again not accurate to the animation model when they did appear. More often than not though, they didn't appear in the show, so the Takara again more accurate in that respect. I have a tiny defect on this one as well actually. In fact, I'm not sure if it's a defect or whether it's just something stuck to the wing, but you can see that there by my finger. There's a little mark there. So all things considered, pretty much the same in terms of the defects. Obviously here we have these floppy tail fins which weren't great, and these are even worse with the hinge in them, and that's what I really like about the Takara mould. You know, if I just move him to the side, you can see that the tail fins and the stabilizers are, you know, rock solid. They don't move up and down, which is great. But anyway, not really here to talk about Lightning in depth. I'm sure you all know about that. It's an old mould now, and for me it's going to be sitting in alt mode. oh yeah, the other thing as well, the wheels don't roll on this mould either, whereas they do on the official. But yeah, anyway, I digress. This is a nice looking jet mode. I'm going to keep it with me with my my Meteor, and eventually when I get Skywarp, I'm going to transform Skycrow into his jet mode, and then I'll have all three of them displayed in alt mode, and that would be great because I want to keep the Takara in bot mode, all three of them. So this will make for the best of both worlds, albeit not completely cartoon accurate. But anyway, hopefully that gives you a good idea, a decent insight into the differences between the two. And you know, I mentioned this in my previous review, my Starscream review. I do prefer the official mould over the MakeToys mould. This is still good in alt mode. There's not a huge amount to choose between them, but I just prefer the more toon accurate proportions. You know, this is slightly shorter, a little bit more compact jet, and I prefer the decals on it. I like the fact it has the moulded Vulcan cannon. I just think it's a more refined piece, and I really like it. So yeah, I won't go over old ground too much. I know I'm plugging my previous video a lot, and probably you'll be like, why have I got to watch another video to hear your thoughts? But honestly, my videos do run so long. I'm trying to sort of keep things a little bit shorter. Anyway, I'm not going to do that by rambling all day, am I? So what I'll do now is I'll get rid of this fella for the time being, and then I'll be back with a slightly more in-depth look at the jet and also some of the accompaniments. You don't get as much with this as you did with Starscream, but you do get a lot more than I thought you did. So stick with me and I'll be right back. Okay, so back with a slightly more detailed look at the jet mode. And I've removed some of the cellophane now, but not the stuff attached to his arms, because you can't really force that out until you do the transformation. But it has all of the same gimmicks as Starscream, obviously being the same mould. So you have the canopy that can open here, the chair can move, I believe. Yes, it's quite stiff on this one actually compared to Starscream, but it folds down should you so desire. You can sit a small figure in there if you have anything. I forgot to show some stuff off actually when I did the Starscream review, so I'm going to try and do this now. I forgot to show this off in the Starscream review, the radar dish, but of course that's there. That feature that was part of the original mould, what were they called? MP-03 and MP-11, weren't they? The original and then the retool, the V1 and the V1 retool, which is why this is a V2, not a V3, as some people insist on calling it. But anyway, this, you know, nice to have. I probably wouldn't utilise it, but it's there if you like it. And what else have we got? We've got the landing gear, which obviously, as I said, it rolls. You have that and that there, that folds up nicely. You also have these, well, they're, again, everyone calls these null rays, as I said in the Starscream video, but technically in jet mode, they're more drop tanks. I don't think they're even meant to be missiles, although you could use them as such or call them such. They have a couple of positions they can go in. They can either go there, or you can have them closer into the body in this notch here, and then they can attach with these struts, which holds them in place so that when you do the transformation, it's integrated and you don't have to detach them, and you can just do the whole thing, a bit like they did with MP-47 Hound, where it all integrated into his legs and feet and things like that. But I don't like that. I prefer them in this position and separate, because I don't like the look of these pieces when they're sticking out into the wing. What else do we have to talk about here? I don't know if you can make that out, but just on there you may be able to see the tiniest little defect in the paint there, but probably not. It depends on how good your eyesight is and the size of your screen, I guess. What else is there to talk about? I'm trying to think how I can show this off. I forgot to mention this in my review of Starscream. I'll take this off just so I don't scratch any paint. But these wings open up, and in there you can see what for Starscream would be cluster bombs. Obviously, all of the Seekers had different weapons. So although everyone calls these null rays, Thundercracker didn't actually have null rays. He had incendiary guns, and he had I think he was the one who had a drone, an independent drone that he could fire and forget. So they haven't really replicated that, but then they never really did that on the G1 toys either, did they? It's more of like a Bob Budiansky profile thing than it ever was into the show or into the comics or the toys or whatever. But yeah, these linings, I'm assuming they're supposed to be the same cluster bombs that Starscream had, but I forgot to show this off properly when I did the Starscream review. I ended up doing it in bot mode in the end. So there you go. You have that nice little bit of detail. I guess as he's flying, he could open that up. He says, as I've taken him off the screen. That's not very clever. And yeah, as he's flying along, you know, carpet bomb everyone underneath, as if his sonic booms aren't enough. So yeah, not, you know, I probably wouldn't utilise that, to be honest. It's not something that I'm really that bothered about, but it's great. It's a play feature if you're interested. What else have we got here? Obviously the landing gear. I'm not going to show you stupid things like, oh, the landing gear retracts. We all know the landing gear retracts. I will put it down and I will bring some of the accessories in, actually. I wasn't expecting it to come with quite as much as it did, as I said, but you get similar blast effects to those that you get with Starscream. So you get this exploding piece here, like, you know, a bit of a strange one. This, it's like as if he's just begun to fire. I guess the blooming of the initial blast, which can attach to these when they are fully extended into their robot mode configuration. Also, you have a similar effect again, like the plume of an initial blast. Not the greatest blast effect as far as I'm concerned. I'm not a huge fan of this. I think perhaps I don't think these combine, but if they had, no. Sometimes they combine, don't they? But yeah, I think perhaps if these effects combine, sometimes you'd get a slightly, you know, you could daisy chain them and get a better looking effect, but they don't do that. So not hugely impressed with that. Finally, you do get this. Again, I still don't think this looks that great, but it's a obviously another blast effect that is more of a full-on laser blast effect. You only get one of these, the same as you did with Starscream, which is a bit silly because you can't get uniformity when you're putting any of these pieces on. But I guess now that I've got two, I could use two of these with one and then two of either of the others with the other. But the only one I'd really consider using is this. So yeah, I don't know. Eventually I guess I'll have all three, so who knows. Also, we have these effects, which are like jet engine effects. Now, these are quite puzzling in the colour choice, because on Starscream they were purple to match the blasts, which, yeah, I can't really recall the show. I know in the show Thundercracker had, in the opening of the G1 animation, season 1, for example, when he lands, he does have like a yellow glow coming from his boosters, which was actually on the back of the box, I think, if you cast your mind back. But so I can see why they chose this colour for him, but then that's puzzling as to why they went for the purple with Starscream. And obviously now, when you have them together, if you were to use these effects, they would have different engine effects, which is weird. I kind of wish they'd gone for the yellow across the board, because it makes more sense than the purple. Although I can see arguments for both. But just to illustrate how that works, you just plug into the jets here, and you know, if you want to do that stuff, say for example you put him on a flight stand, then it looks like he has some jet effects, and it also works in bot mode as well, as it did with Starscream. Now personally it's not something I would use, but you know, it's a nice option to have. Let's pop these out. And finally, we come to the face sculpts. And I'm super pleased to report that I don't have any duplicates in the box. Sorry, if I see if I can get this to focus a little better. I'm not sure how well that's coming out there. But yeah, this is his, I guess you'd call it his concerned face. There you go, that's a little bit better, isn't it? Focus. That's his kind of concerned face, his shocked, surprised face, which is a nice face sculpt. I like that. That's very good. Next up we have, let's go with his slightly smirky face, shall we? Hopefully that one's coming out all right for you as well. Apologies for the shaky hands. I'm kind of leaning across my desk here as I do this. Yeah, slight smirk, not a Starscream smirk, but yeah, it looks nice enough. And then you have, this will probably be the expression I choose for Thundercracker, actually, just because I don't know why, I just always associate him with being more of the jovial one of the group. Starscream's sort of kind of sly and smirky, Skywarp's kind of sneering and mean, and Thundercracker was slightly more jovial. I don't know why I have that impression, I just do. But yeah, I like this face sculpt, and there is a fourth sculpt obviously, and that is on the bot already. You can't see it until I transform it, but that's the neutral face sculpt. So yeah, I'm glad, because a lot of people on Starscream got duplicates, excuse me, and I've seen some people already with Thundercracker getting duplicates as well. And that's, yeah, it's pretty sad when you get that, because you've got zero chance of getting a replacement from Takara. So I'm pretty glad that I've got everything. What I wasn't expecting actually with this guy is that he also comes with the flight stand. I haven't unpacked it, but it's the same purple brick that you got with Starscream, with the arm and everything. And it's obviously all the instructions and the character card are in here as well. I'm not going to take all of these out at the moment, because I just don't want to unpack it, and I mean, you guys all know what it is anyway. So yeah, it surprised me, because the initial materials I saw for this and Skywarp back a few months back when they were first announced, they didn't show that in the picture, and because there's something like 30 quid less than Starscream was, I just assumed they'd cut costs by not including things like the flight stand, and perhaps not as many accessories. And while it's true they don't have as many accessories, it's weird that, you know, the stuff that is not included with this, that is included with Starscream, doesn't amount to 30 odd quid's worth of value in my mind. I mean, I'm trying to think what you get. You get the Megatron gun. You get the drill, the meteorite piece, and the claw. And I think, I could be wrong, someone will correct me in the comments, I'm sure, if I am wrong, but I think that's the only stuff that you get with Starscream that isn't included with this figure. And that, you know, those few bits of plastic do not amount to 30 quid's worth of difference. You know, the cynic in me thinks that Takara thought, well, it's Starscream, people are going to want that character because of who he is, so we can charge a bit more than the repaints, which, you know, we might not sell those at 215 quid a pop, which is what Screamer was going for over here, but, you know, we can get away with it for him, but the repaints will knock those down to sub 200 and have more chance of shifting them. So yeah, I feel a little bit like, I mean, I thought Starscream was overpriced anyway, as most Takara bots are. I mean, I still don't even think these are worth what I paid for them, really, in comparison to some figures I've got elsewhere, and even older Takara stuff. But it's kind of where we are, isn't it? You know, everything costs more at the moment due to the pandemic, and over here Brexit and things like that. So yeah, I think I paid about 180 for this, which is, you know, I'm happy with that. I'm definitely happier than 215. But for me, it's a very strange thing that this is 30 quid less for what amounts probably to like a couple of quid's worth of plastic. But yeah, anyway, that's everything you get with him, and it looks pretty good, I think. I'm trying to remember if this is a play feature I've missed. Sorry, I think I might just have. I don't want to do it, but I think this opens up, he says, into an air brake. But I really don't want to take the paint off, so I'm being cautious. Yeah, maybe I won't force that. Maybe it doesn't. I could be incorrectly remembering that. So I won't mess around with it too much, but it's possible that is also an air brake. I know that's part of the transformation hinge for the figure, but I can't remember if that will also open up into an air brake. It may or it may not. Anyway, again, in the interests of brevity, I will cut this bit short now, and I'm going to get this guy transformed up into robot mode, and I'll do the same with MakeToys Lightning as well, just so you have a comparison for that. I've got pretty adept at transforming that figure without the instructions, and quite quickly, but that's probably not going to be the case for Thundercracker. So For you, it will be mere moments. For me, possibly 30 minutes or more of frustration. But yeah, stick with me and I'll be right back with a look at the robot mode. And through the magic of editing, I'm back before you know it. Well, here he is. And yeah, I'm pretty pleased to say that not only do I underestimate my transformation abilities, because I got both this and the MakeToys figure done pretty quickly, but also that one or two minor things aside, I don't have any major issues with it. There are some, and they're disappointing, but I'll cover them. They're more cosmetic than anything. You may be able to see, I'll bring it forward closer to the camera, I do have some unsightly paint chipping on the shoulder there, which is disappointing because it's so prominent. Yeah, that is a real bummer actually, that it's there. There's a tiny bit on this side as well, but nowhere near as obvious. That aside, I can't see any other major issues with the paint on the figure. It does bug me immediately looking at it that it's there. If it had been on the back of the bicep, it wouldn't have been as much of an issue, obviously. But honestly, I will probably forget about it fairly quickly, given that everything else about it is so good. And I could have had way more issues than this. I've seen some posts with poor individuals who've had, you know, really bad paint chipping around here, far more blemishes everywhere on the figure. I seem to have escaped that largely, so I'm pretty happy. Yeah, not ecstatic, because I hate it when you have obvious paint defects on a figure, but by and large he's pretty good, so I should count myself lucky really. Anyway, yeah, I love this mold. I don't know, transforming it then just reinforced how much I love it. It's really intuitive. As I said, I managed to do the MakeToys from bot to jet without any instructions, and that was nice and easy. And I just did it from jet to bot without any instructions. I did look up how to transform this mold just because I thought I don't want to break it. But to be honest with you, I really didn't need it beyond a couple of steps to remind me how it goes. It's really intuitive, and it didn't take me very long. I think it took me less than 30 minutes to transform both of them, which is pretty good going, to be honest. So yeah, it's a really nice intuitive transformation, and I really love the way it looks. And I love these colours. Like, I think they look even better than Starscream, and I thought Starscream looked good, but this, again, I just love this blue. I think it looks awesome, and as I said, I'm even colour coordinated with it today. So yeah, looking around the figure, it could be a lot worse in terms of paint. The back of I'd rather it had been on the back, to be honest, but in all honesty, I don't have any major gripes with it. I count myself lucky. Your mileage may vary. I mean, we all know QC is very hit and miss, isn't it? You can end up with a great figure, or you can end up with a disaster. Thankfully I've landed somewhere in the middle, which is good. I'm going to take the positives. I choose to be positive. Lovely looking figure all round. I love the toon aesthetic. I love the heroic proportions. I know people are going on about the deformation space Starscream, which has since been revealed and released since I did my my MP-52 review. But for me, I'm really glad I didn't go in on that now, because while I do like the look of it, it is not quite what I would be looking for my display, because it's too tall for my liking. It is, compared to the Sunbow reference chart, it is way too tall. It's even taller than Meteor. It's as tall as Soundwave, and that is just, Starscream shouldn't tower over Shockwave and be almost as tall as Megatron. He's supposed to be quite diminutive. I think we just have this skewed view of him because of the way he was animated in later series, but if you actually look at the reference in terms of his height and colour, MP-52 is pretty spot on. So it follows that these guys are the same. And yeah, I've sorry, you just have to. I'm sort of admiring it as I talk about it as well. So I keep trailing off, thinking, wow, every time I look at a different part, I think, oh, that's really neat. It's really nice to be enthused about masterpiece figures again, isn't it? Like I got really disillusioned with them at one point with Takara. They were churning out stuff that I really wasn't into. There were a lot of aesthetic things I didn't like, and then there were also a lot of QC issues. But these, by and large, are, you know, for me anyway, the QC is not too bad, and they just look great, and they're easy to transform. I know some people struggle with them. I've seen some reviewers really struggling. I find them super easy, and I'm not like the greatest transformation expert in the world, but I just find them really nice and enjoyable and intuitive. So that's great. And yeah, as I said, I don't think. Well, I'm not sad that I didn't hold out for the repaints of the DS for this, which have just been announced for him and Skywarp, but they're too tall. I prefer the heroic proportions of this guy. You know, I know the exaggerated legs bug some. People should say proportionally they should be higher up. You know, the shins should be longer, and people don't like this sort of what they call tubby chest. But that's all too inaccurate. Admittedly, the legs may be a little bit exaggerated, but it does what it does a job, and it's there to serve a purpose. And it's the way the figures have been going from Takara. You know, you look at MP-44, 47, 45. I know I did that out of order then. I don't know why. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that, you know, the more recent Takara bots have all had these long, exaggerated legs and sort of rounded proportions. They just look great. I think. Another thing I've also just noticed, and I wasn't sure if they were going to do it. The animation model has a kind of an oddity whereby his feet are darker, kind of greyish black to match his head than the forearms and hands, and they've done it. I thought they might cheap out and do the whole thing the same colour, you know, all these bits the same colour, but they haven't. They've done them the correct colour. I love that, mainly because no other version of the character that I've seen has done that before at masterpiece scale anyway. So yeah, I love the deco. I think it looks fantastic, and yeah, I'm really, really loving this guy. I'm over the moon with him. Few issues aside, and they are minor. I'm trying to be trying to put it in perspective. They are relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. I'm not really drawn to them straight away. I'm looking at the rest of how, you know, the rest of his paint job and how awesome he is. Anyway. Enough about me going on and sort of having a bit of a nerdgasm about Thundercracker here. Let's bring in the MakeToys figure for comparison, just as a first off. And I don't know if he'll actually fit in. He's slightly taller, but I don't want to adjust the camera just to account for that. He almost fits in frame. Yeah, God. Looking old now, isn't it? I think I said the same thing in the Starscream review. He just, you know, they were good stand-ins because they were better and more toon accurate than what we had from Takara previously, which isn't saying much. But yeah, they really don't look anything like the toon model at all, do they? Jet mode's fine, you know, the alt modes are good, but in bot mode, yeah, they are not good at all. I mean, you know, I know people out there still like them. I still like them. I don't want to bag on them because I've had them for a couple of years now and they've served a purpose and they look, you know, they do look nice enough, but they don't fit a toon-centric display anywhere near as well as this guy does. So what I do like about it though is that they do have a slightly cleaner backpack, I guess. Although you know, there's a trade-off everywhere. They've got this weird butt flap, but what I've also done with mine, the option that you can have on these that you couldn't have on the cone head they've released, or on the reissues of these, I believe. But the original release, this was held on by a C-clip, so instead of having it dangling off the back, you could just remove the whole thing, fold these flaps up, and then you had a cleaner back. I haven't got the wing fillers for this guy, so he does look pretty hollow there. I don't like the way the fins just wrap around the legs. You know, there's other stuff, isn't there? It's just not as good. Let's face it, it's not. But as I said, I'm not gonna slag it off because it's been a good little stand-in for my Thundercracker needs. So yeah, but I hope we can all agree that in every way, this is a superior, every way that matters anyway, this is the superior bot. So anyway, I'm going to get rid of old Lightning here, you know, old parts forming Lightning with this little missiles I had to remove as well, and then I'll come back with an overview of MP-52 Plus's articulation. Okay, so I'm going to try and clip through this quicker than I would normally. Try maybe a slightly different editing style, who knows, see how we get on with it. So yeah, let's run top to bottom, see what he's got. So head is on a ball, so he can look left and right. Oh, yeah, that was a good start, wasn't it? That was something I was going to mention actually. The face, this face, I haven't tried any of the other sculpts, but this is very loose, so I might have to put some floor polish on the notch, or sorry, the tab to go into the notch, and hopefully hold it in there slightly better. But anyway, right, let's take to that. It's got a very tight head swivel on the ball joint there. He can look up a long way, as you can see, stupidly long way, comically in fact. He can look down a bit, but if you utilise that same joint and bring it up like that, he can look down a long way, which is good. So yeah, it's you know, you can have him looking back without revealing that quite a long way as well. So I think you can also get a little bit of side to side on it, so he can, like, you know, cock his head at you and look a little bit puzzled, which is good. So that's all of the faces come off again. Brilliant. Definitely gonna have to do something about that. I noticed that when I was transforming it. I forgot to mention it earlier. But anyway, so that's the head articulation. Arms, they are on a soft ratchet, and they can 360, or at least they could if you didn't have the wing in the way. Has a nice bicep swivel there. It's quite loose, I will say that. It was the same on MP-52 Starscream, but it does the job. Has a nice deep elbow bend there, not quite double jointed. You can sort of cheat it if you release this joint at the back here, but it's not intended to do that. So it's a deep bend, but it's not all the way. You have some nice wrist articulation, as you'd expect. You can get a 360 out of that. Pretty standard. There's a little bit of outward movement there and inward movement as well, should you so desire. And the fingers, you have a thumb on pinned at the base and at the knuckle, and then you have 4 independently pinned and posable fingers as well, the same as MP-52. Like MP-52, the thumb still seems to be in a bit of an odd place. It should potentially be in a bit more, but you know, it is what it is. It doesn't look too bad, and it does the job. Okay, so the big one, obviously we know with this mould there is no waist rotation, but we do get the same ab crunch that we got with 52 on 52 Plus, and that utilises this joint here. You can see it's actually quite a nice deep crunch as well, and you know, you can see that little piece in there moving as we do it. Oh, forgot to mention as well, arms. A bit of an oversight. Arms can go up that far on that joint there, which is quite a nice way. You know, you can get a lot of movement out of that beyond the horizontal there. So yeah, nice bit there. And if you utilise this joint at the top of the arm, you can get even more, almost vertical, if he wasn't hitting himself in the head with his weapon. Also worth mentioning the butterfly joint here, so you can bring that out all the way and get that arm across the chest. Looks pretty obvious that you're doing that, but you know, you can cheat it with angles, I'm sure. One thing I would have liked though is that these weapons were independently movable, so that when the arm was there you could slide them around a bit like Fans Toys Sovereign with his tracks on his arms. You can always keep them at the back or at the side or wherever. It's a little bit of a pain they can't do that because obviously they couldn't attune, but you know, not the end of the world. Still use that butterfly joint for some good posing. Okay, onto the legs, and you have a nice stiff ratchet out horizontal. That holds really well. That isn't going anywhere. I'm pretty pleased with that. You get some pretty good forward movement on the hips there, out to the horizontal. Again, holds well on that stiff ratchet. Doesn't go all the way back because of the backpack, but you know, you get a bit of motion out of it, and you can use the ab crunch and get a little bit more if you desire. It also has a thigh rotation up there, quite limited really. Due to the design, it won't go too far. It hits at the back when you do it, so you can't get too much out of it, but it's enough. You don't really need too much more than that when you're posing a figure. Okay, knees were an issue with MP52 and 52 Plus. It feels about the same actually, perhaps slightly stiffer, but maybe that's just my imagination. Honestly, my copy of Starscream wasn't really that bad, so maybe I just got lucky, and that is why I'm not too bothered about it. I never had any problems posing my Starscream or standing him, whereas some people did, and the knees feel about the same on this this copy of 52 Plus. So yeah, your mileage may vary though, obviously, as it's a well-documented issue with a number of figures. The other issue that people had were the ankles. As you can see on mine, they're easy to pose, but they're not what I would call loose. I mean, I have actually tabbed mine in properly. I do wonder that some of the problems that people report are because they haven't locked them in, and they're floppy, and they haven't, you know, as you can see, it's supposed to move in conjunction with the thruster, not independently, and you know, that isn't going anywhere. It's probably slightly stiffer on this side than it is on this side, but not by a huge margin. And you know, he can hold a pose, as you can see. He's not falling anywhere on his ankles. So you also get a little bit of ankle rocker on there, which is good when you're doing wider stances like that. And you get some nice toe pivot there. You can even go that way on it if you are so inclined. And there's a little bit up as well. Oh, also worth mentioning as well, going back up the figure a little bit, the weapons, what they call the null rays, but I guess they're actually incendiary guns. They are you can articulate those as well independently. You can have them in two positions. Down is the default position where it should really be, but you can also have them up if you want. I don't like that look, so I will always have them down. And like with MP52, they are removable and convertible to be used as a handheld weapon should you so desire. Okay, probably time to wrap this up with some final thoughts now. I love this guy. That's all I can really say. I think it's a really super expressive mould. Really like the way it looks, and I vastly prefer it over the MakeToys. And also, it beats out the DS as well for me by a country mile. I know that's pretty controversial because everyone seems to be selling their MP52 Starscreams to get the DS, but for me, this is the definitive version of the Seeker mould, and probably will be for some time until we get another version down the line, which has got a slightly more cartoon accurate deco, which I'll buy like a mug. Yeah, again, I think you know what you're getting with this. If you liked 52 Starscream, you're going to love this guy as well. If you didn't, all of the same things apply. I think, you know, on balance, my 52 was probably slightly better in terms of the paint job. This obviously, as I've said, has got a couple of marks here, which may come off actually. That's not going anywhere. That's an actual paint defect. I've got a couple of other minor ones. The paint on the faces isn't quite as good as it is on my Starscream. But, you know, on the other hand, it doesn't have any cracks. The joints are slightly tighter as well. So it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? I think, all things considered, they're roughly on a par quality-wise, and within what you'd expect from tolerances and QC on a mass-produced figure. So I don't think I'm going to convince anyone to buy this who has their heart set on the DS versions. That's not the idea behind this video. And likewise, not really looking, you know, if you're looking for confirmation bias, I guess you've got it. If you already love this figure, you know, I'm preaching to the choir, aren't I? But if you're on the fence, maybe this might sway you one way or the other, I guess. You know, I'm going way more towards the toon aesthetic in my collection now. I've only got a couple of figures that I look at and think, oh, you know, they're not really very evocative of the character model. And among them were the MakeToys Seekers, and this really, you know, is a godsend for me because Starscream with Thundercracker, and we're going to have Skywarp in the next couple of months. I'm really looking forward to him as well. But I just, yeah, I can't enthuse about this guy enough. So if you're on the fence, you know, check it out. It's a really great figure. QC is a bit of a lottery with all Masterpiece figures, and especially Takara, it seems, lately. But, you know, I don't think the minimal issues I've got with it are really all that bad. Yeah, anyway, it's your money, your choice. The DS have been announced, and they are undoubtedly cheaper. I think, you know, Starscream over here in the UK was a little over £100, and I'm guessing that the repaints will be the same. So you could have all three for less than the price of two of the officials. There are also KOs coming, I've seen, and they're supposedly improved KOs, at least of Starscream. I haven't seen the others announced yet. There was an MP-52 KO that was supposedly improved, wasn't there? I own it. I've done a video review, and it wasn't improved. I mean, there were certain things that I liked about it, and it only cost 70 quid as opposed to 330 quid, but it wasn't better than the official. So you know, you could take your chances with the KOs, but you know, I don't think they're always necessarily as improved as they promise. Yeah, anyway, thanks for tuning in, and I do have some other videos lined up. I have, obviously, in a couple of months, I'm going to be following up with a Skywalk review, all things going well, and I have a couple of other ideas for some non-unboxing videos that I'm working on at the moment, hopefully. And I have a few other figures on order, as I've said. I'm hoping the next thing to drop will be the Robot Paradise sound wave. They're, you know, acoustic wave. That and the cassettes I have on order. I think, unfortunately, Virtus, which was due out soon, now they're talking about January next year, which is a pain because it looks to be finished. But hopefully the Lock reissue will be coming soon, and I should be getting that from my retailer as a replacement. That's what X-Transbots have said that they're going to do. So I'll review that when it comes out. And then I have Fans Toys Rig on order, and I have Outrider on order. And I'm thinking about picking up the X-Transbots Perceptor and their Galvatron as well, but they are a long way off, aren't they? So Galvatron, I think, is almost a year away. So anyway, there should be enough content coming your way if you're interested in checking out the channel going forward. And I thank everyone for taking an interest in the video, both new and old viewers alike. And all that remains for me to do now is to say, keep well, keep safe and healthy, and thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.